So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint these quirky moth illustrations. And these make great prints, especially if you arrange them into a collage. So the rough watercolor effect here is coming from the Himalaya paper texture. I'm also going to use the feather brush kit, and I'll put a link to that as well. So to start, I'm going to use the Splatter Abstract Round Brush, and the wings are what I'm going to do first, and those are stroke based, and I'm just going to do some very gentle strokes, kind of side by side, and create this almost upside down heart shape. And if it turns out a little bit uneven, that's actually a good thing. I think it has a really nice kind of character to it. Next, I'm going to choose a secondary color that'll kind of enhance this one, and I'm going to use that to do the body. So I'll press very lightly and then harder and harder to make that kind of shape. And also I want to make the head this color as well. Now sometimes the colors you choose don't have great contrast, but it's totally fine. You can just choose a lighter version and try again. It also gives you a chance to add an interesting pattern in there as well. Next, I'm going to add some line details to the wings, and that's going to be on its own layer, so I'll make a new layer above the moth, and I'll choose some kind of dark tone that's somewhat similar to what we painted the moth with. For the brush, I'm going to use the Feather Vein Dotter at a pretty small size, and I'm just going to add in a bunch of line details like this. Now the reason I did the lines on their own layer is because I'm going to change the transparency mode to multiply. Then I'm going to set it to a point where the lines are very lightly kind of showing through. There we go. And once you're happy with how it looks, just merge it all together with the body so everything is on one layer. This will just keep it easier to organize, especially later on when you have multiple moths on one artboard. Now to finish this moth up, I'm going to choose a pretty dark color. I think something like that. Same Feather Vein Dotter that I did the lines with, and I'm going to use it to do the antenna like this. And I'm also going to use it to add a couple of dots on the head. Now one thing that often happens to me is all my moths look very similar. So an easy way to make them look different is to just use the arrow tool and set it to warp. And you can kind of add a somewhat extreme warp to them. And just by bending the wings, you can really change their character. Next, I want to show you how to add symmetrical patterns. So I'm going to paint another moth just over here, and I'm going to do it in a sort of light pastel blue color. And of course, I just painted this using the same technique we used for the first moth. Now for the pattern, I like those to be on their own layer, so I'll make a new layer above the moth. And I want to do a black kind of digital pattern, so I'm going to choose a dark color like that. Feather Vein Dotter brush. And I'm just going to go all over it and add these random kind of black shapes. And I'm doing them kind of like this on purpose, kind of scribbling in the direction of the wings. This makes them look a little bit more natural. And if I wanted this pattern to be exactly mirrored over on this side, it would be too much work to do it by hand. So I'm actually just going to copy the layer with the pattern. Then I can use the arrow tool and actually just flip it. Then I can just move it around and kind of position it. Now it's normal that it doesn't fit exactly because each wing is a little bit different. So you can just use the warp tool to kind of push it and bend it into shape. And I think this moth will look a little bit better if I can lighten it up. So before I merge everything together, I'm going to select the body of the moth and just brighten it up a little bit. There we go. Then I'll just merge everything together onto one layer. So now each moth is on its own layer, and that's going to make it easier to make an arrangement later on. Now usually I don't add legs to the moths, but if you want to, you can use a very light color, kind of similar to the color tone of the moth itself. Then using the Feather Vein Dotter, you can just do some very simple kind of segmented legs, just peeking out of the side. And just like before, I'm going to use the arrow tool set to warp to bend this moth into a slightly more unique shape. Now for the last moth, I'm going to show you how I get an ombre effect. So I'm going to make a new layer for that one, and using a very light green tone, I'm going to sketch out another simple moth. And for the ombre effect, I'll just make a normal moth using any of the techniques I already covered, but at the very last step, I'm going to use the selection tool set to freehand, and I'll circle a roughly symmetrical area of the moth. Then I'll feather out that selection quite a bit. Then I can go to hue, saturation, and brightness, and just shift the hue and mess with some of these other settings, and I can usually get a really amazing effect. And there we go. Hopefully this covers the basics. I've already gone ahead and painted a bunch of these moths, and here's some of the final results. So when you first start painting moths, I think you're going to run into two problems right away. The first one is which colors to use. Definitely with a lot of practice, you can actually get good at choosing color combinations, but when you're just starting out, I recommend looking at photos of real moths and taking your colors from that. The second problem is that you're going to struggle with your own perfectionism. These moths are supposed to be very loose and rough and lopsided, and you might see a crooked wing or a weird antenna as a flaw, but I promise other people will look at those and see character. And there we go, that pretty much wraps it up. As always, if you think I've earned it, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks again for all your support, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.